But that thread on Twitter really, solidified it in my mind. Hey, I need to, go ahead and get this vaccine. I'm not trying to experience any of this.
So when I was doing my first responder training, we had to complete ride-alongs, and on the truck, I asked them like, what percentage of patients do you see are suffering from complications from the Delta variant or just COVID in general? And they said they see about 7 out of 9 of their patients on the night shift are struggling from COVID complications, especially the younger generation. They said about 20 to 30 years old is where like they've seen a lot of issues with respiratory things and cardiac issues due to COVID-19. So they said it's a lot of stuff they've seen with Delta variant affecting populations. Thank you. And I think everyone on our panel here has been vaccinated. Would you mind sharing which vaccination you took and if you had any symptoms or anything from your personal experience that you can share from the vaccine? Yeah, well, I had Pfizer, and the first day wasn't bad, but the second day after my second shot, I had severe body aches, fatigue, stuffy nose, runny nose. The side effects for the second shot were much worse than the first shot.
Yeah, and I have Pfizer as well. The only side effects that I had was the day after the second shot. I just had fatigue and soreness. But aside from that, I've been fine since.
For me, I got the majority of my information online. I'm pretty young. I'm on social media a lot, so a lot of stuff through Twitter and Instagram. In terms of the vaccine, I was able to hop in on a couple of different Instagram and Facebook lives about some different doctors, particularly black doctors, breaking down and explaining what the vaccine was, how they have been working on it for years, how it affects you, and how the positives outweigh the negatives. That helped, and like I said, Twitter, reading a bunch of different articles, and it was one particular thread on Twitter that really pushed me. We talked about long COVID earlier, but it was a thread, and a lady asked. She asked everybody to drop and talk about some of the different things that you were experiencing with COVID, and it was hundreds of thousands of people, and I sat down for like 2-3 hours and went through all of the different things that were affecting different people, and we were talking about months after they had it. He went into detail, stomach viruses, people not being able to think clearly, brain fog, not being able to, function. Some people had to, take breaks from their jobs. They aren't been able to perform. When I looked at, I don't think anybody's done a study, but I've noticed that a lot of the athletes, I watch a lot of sports, a lot of the athletes that have COVID, whenever they have COVID and they come back, they have never been. I haven't seen an athlete come back, 100%. It's always, their stats go down and decrease, and usually take a couple of months for them to, return to full health. But that thread on Twitter really, solidified it in my mind. Hey, I need to, go ahead and get this vaccine. I'm not trying to experience any of this. People were talking about, losing family members, not being able to breathe, people struggling doing basic tasks like going up the steps. So, yeah, online, social media.
Yeah, I got most of my information just from friends and family and doing my own due diligence and research. I have a lot of friends and family that's in the medical field, and they just gave me the rundown on basically everything that was going on with the testing and how they was taking it themselves because they knew that it was safe, and they was making sure that it was going through the proper tests, and it was making sure that it was going to be effective. And then when I did my own due diligence and research, I just seen that it was way more beneficial for me to go ahead and take the vaccine because I'm looking out for not just myself but my family, and I have a grandmother and a brother and a sister to think about, and I just couldn't risk spreading it to them, especially because I'm going to college and I'm going to be around a lot of different people. It wasn't really worth it to risk going to class and then coming back and giving them the virus. So I just made sure that I did my own due diligence, and I couldn't risk having them contract the virus.
And I think Ms. Harding mentioned that she had the virus. If anybody else on the panel and our healthcare professional has already admitted, is anybody else be willing to admit to having the virus, and would they be willing to speak on their experience? I had the virus, but my case was mild too, back in December. I think I went through did the quarantine process, but I only had like 2 symptoms: loss of taste, loss of smell. The first day I had a fever, but it didn't went away the second day, and then body aches, and that was all.
I had it as well. It kind of swept through my whole family. My little brother was asymptomatic, but for me, I had slight little bit, trouble breathing, not much. Wasn't anything to, where I was worried about it. But I had trouble sleeping. I had a little bit of brain fog, and I had it attacked me, like he said, kind of like a stomach virus as well. So, for most of it, it felt like a mild cold/stomach bug. But like I said, it was pretty mild, and I was just out of work for a month.
Mine was totally opposite of both of the younger 2 adults. Mine was severe. I actually work out, I run. I'm still very active, but when I got sick, it first hit me June 18th, 2020. I remember it like yesterday. I had the little sniffles, kind of like, a little dry cough. I coach football at Mountain Island Charter School here in Mount Holly, North Carolina. So I was just like, maybe it's allergies, it's nothing serious. So then that next morning, June 19th, I woke up, my whole left shoulder, my knee, and my left ankle were sore like I had gotten beaten with a bat. So I I was like, something can't be right, So I was able to be a walk-in at my primary care physician. And so they tested me first for the flu. Flu test came back negative. Everywhere in Charlotte was jam-packed to capacity, so he sent me up to Claremont Hospital in Gastonia, North Carolina. They then swabbed my throat with a large, long Q-tip, and that night I fell asleep and I could not breathe. I woke up. My wife was actually knocked out. I fell asleep, and when I woke up, I was like I had ran a mile. If you've ever ran real fast and you got that burning feeling in your chest and everything, and you just wake up, and I was just breathing extremely hard. So I woke up and I knew I was sick, and I've never felt that way before in my life. So I just stayed up and I just kept drinking water. And of course I was scared because I had never had that feeling before. So I sat up in the bed and I stayed up that whole night. I didn't go to bed till like 8 a.m. that morning. I drank maybe like 8 cups of water. Saying that, I started vomiting. I could not hold the water down. I couldn't eat. And my doctor called me back that Monday and said, Mr. Henderson, you are positive for COVID-19. Long story short, I could not move out of the bed. I stayed in the bed from that Friday all the way to the next Saturday. And that led to me losing anywhere between 12 to 15 pounds. I had gotten extremely small, ongoing headaches. My headaches lasted maybe like for 3 months. So I was real worried. I didn't know if I had high blood pressure. I didn't know. Once I found out that it was a lingering effect from the COVID-19 virus, didn't feel better, but I felt a little bit better because I didn't want, to be extremely sick with anything else. The body aches, the dizziness, I couldn't get out of the bed. Every time I tried to get out of the bed to walk, to use the restroom, I would have to have assistance or help. So I try to tell everybody, I'm an active guy. I'm still just telling people, I don't care how active you are if COVID-19 hits you, it affects all of us differently.
It doesn't discriminate.
It doesn't discriminate. I don't have no heart issues. I don't have asthma. I don't have anything. Thank God. High blood pressure, nothing. But when I had COVID, I felt like I had everything under the sun. So I just tell people that to educate them and let them know it don't matter if you're overweight. It don't matter if you're super slim. If it wants to attack your body, whatever, however it wants to, it will. So just to say that, but thank God I made it.
Thank you for sharing that perspective, because I've heard stories, I think we all have heard stories of those who are physically fit and those who take their supplements and these herbs, that they're okay, and even I will admit to trying to, dose my children up with the quercetin and the zinc and the vitamin C, and I'm take this, take it every day, but we still ended up getting it. And, thank God our symptoms were mild, but just like you said, I've seen people who run marathons that it just knocked them out, so it doesn't discriminate. And even, you could be a very physically fit human being, and it could just take you out, and
I'm one of those herb people. I'm a wellness coach, so I'm a herb person. Like everything, vitamin, whatever you can think
Absolutely.
of. But literally, like I said, it attacked my heart. My heart was beating so fast I could barely stand up. Like when I got to the hospital, the lady is like, "Wait," I'm like, "No," because I'm about to fall down in 1 second. Like that's how it got me. I had a very, very mild case of pneumonia, but my heart rate was going so fast that they immediately pulled the EKG machine to me as soon as I walked in the door, and it stayed like that for about 3 days, and then I didn't have any other symptoms. So I stayed in the hospital for 5 days before they would let me go home, just to make sure that my heart hadn't been damaged or whatever, and then I quarantined at home. So it doesn't care. It picks however, and then it attacks.
And I think I have to just thank God for my experience or non-experience with it. A couple family members have gotten it. One said they wasn't going to take it and ended up having it. But the stories that I hear, like the lady I met on the staircase at the house the other day, it's like, and although I haven't gotten it, there's no reason that I shouldn't get it or won't get it. So I'm just knocking on wood right now that I'm okay. It's not going to be like that forever, but I try to keep myself safe. But I'm paying the price by not being around my family and just having a smaller circle. But if I have to do that to keep living and keep doing the work that I do, then I'm willing to do that, sacrifice not seeing my children for a couple of years. I mean, it hurts not to see them, but it'll hurt more if I know I did something and I'm not here for them. So I haven't had it. I'm thankful for that. I'm sorry that people are getting it and dying from it. I see people on the news saying that, who weren't going to take it, who are breathing through their mask and saying take it. It hasn't touched me personally. Nobody in my immediate family, brothers or sisters, aunts, uncles. Had a couple cousins, but I've been blessed. I think that's also what's pushing the work that we do. Just being thankful for where we are, being content, and saying, some people need what we're doing. They need to continue to see us in their face and say, we care enough about you to keep this conversation going, however long we have to keep it going. Because we don't want to be in this thing for 4, 5, 6, 7 years down the road, And I think that's my focus, and I'm so thankful for the people that God has brought across my path. Since coming out of homelessness and drug addiction, and that would be the least of my problems if I had COVID. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just thankful now, and I'm just thankful for being around these young people and health professionals and people who are passionate about being advocates for the community, because there's not a lot of people that think like we do. There's not a lot of people that's not scared to go in the hood, knock on the door, and say, "Are you okay?" Because there's a lot of people who out there need that in their house. You know what I'm saying? Just somebody come knock on the door, "You okay? What can I do?" not wanting anything from them, not asking. I don't want no. I don't care what's going on with you, but I just want to let you know that I'm here for you. If it's anything that you need, here's my number. Here's what we're providing for the community today. This is the conversation we're having with the people in the neighborhood today, because we know that you are important, and there's a lot of folks that don't care about our people. A lot of people don't care about. Charlotte is in this thing they're doing. They're kind of like pushing us to the side. So it's up to people like us to make sure that our voices stay in the front.
Absolutely.
You know, what they say, squeaky wheel always gets oil.
That's right. That's right.
And that's what I try to do. I try, like my friend Angie Ford, God rest her soul. One of the most passionate advocates I've ever met in Charlotte, Angie Ford. You know, on the west side, she passed, not from COVID, but she passed from other stuff. She was always an agitator in the city about people doing the right thing, you know, about our leaders doing the right thing. Our county commissioners and city council people and all these organizations that we have in Charlotte doing the right thing. Churches doing the right thing, you know. And I think that's what we're trying to do here. But what we're doing with this message is to encourage people to do the right thing. And like I said earlier, will you make the decision now, or because you're going to have to make it eventually, will you make it now, or will you make it down the road where those choices may be more challenging for you to make, you know? And I can probably guarantee you that those challenges will be more if your employer starts to get into the picture.
So what's the answer, guys? What's the answer? How do we get our community on board with this? We discussed education. We discussed the different reasons why our community is hesitant against it. We talked about the youth and their position. What do you say is the answer?
We're gonna have to look to our future, because again, if you know, at first it was killing the elderly, and it's just moving its way down on who it's killing.
Exactly.
But if you notice in other communities, it's not killing them because they got vaccinated. They're pushing things through to get their children done, but we're not being proactive about our kids. We have got to come out of a reactive type of nature as a culture and start seeing what it is. Yes, there was the Tuskegee. Yes, there was Henrietta Lacks. But again, you got, like I said, you went back and you got all those other vaccines, you didn't have a choice. Or, you know, unfortunately, I know when I was small, if my cousin got chicken pox, my grandma was like, everybody go over there, everybody gonna get chicken pox together. We can't do that with COVID, because you get everybody to have COVID and 9 or 10 of them might not make it out of that. And then again, the little ones don't have a choice. They cannot get vaccinated. And if you don't become proactive and protect your future, because we're the ones with pre-existing conditions, you're not dying from COVID. You're dying from the complications of COVID, or you're living with long-term COVID.
Speak on that.
So, you know, it's the long COVID. It's like, I got this respiratory, like I said, I have respiratory issues already. I had asthma before I ever got COVID. So it's like, you'll notice it might be a cough that even with just regular pneumonia, I've had walking pneumonia. It took forever to get rid of that cough. COVID is affecting that differently. It might have took me a month after I had, even with your common cold, the cough is the last thing that goes. The respiratory part is the last thing that clears out. So with long COVID is making, you just don't know how long. And I know, you know, Mr. Lee spoke to the fact that a lady he spoke to, she now feels like she's having brain fog, like she's having episodes that she just don't remember stuff for a minute until she clears. Like, we don't know what the long-term effects of this is going to be. So why would we take that chance? Especially if there's something that's there. It would have been different in those first 3 or 4 months. And we just didn't know, you know. But now it's like, once you know better, you do better. And that's not what we're just not doing that as a black community. And so now that we have our elderly protected, we just forgetting about the babies.
Exactly. COVID affects you in so many ways, not only health-wise, mentally, socially. So, you know,
Housing,
all of that, you know, it's just, I see it every day, and that's why I like this age group right here, that 20 to 30-year-old age group, because what I want is more of them to get on board with us,
Exactly.
you know, 30 and over.
I work in a grocery store. I see it every day. You know, people come in unmasked. People who raise a fit, you know, at people who tell them to, you know, put on a mask. Like I said before, we do a podcast together, and we took a break. But at the beginning of the pandemic, you know, a lot of our videos and topics were coming from social media and people who were Karens who were throwing fits in stores, you know, yelling, cursing at people, you know. They were outside marching, you know, getting kicked out of grocery stores and, you know, all other different places, you know, holding large gatherings and parties. And I've seen a lot of that, you know, amongst my friends, you know, particularly people who, you know, aren't vaccinated or aren't even taking, you know, any precaution. I've seen them, weddings, a lot of different stuff. So,
Yeah. Like he said, most of our content was just a bunch of people being ignorant and not really wanting to, like, abide by the rules, so to say. Like, they go in the grocery store and just refuse to wear a mask, sneezing on people. And I've seen it mostly in a lot of college students that just don't really want to, and they just want to go out and party and they want to go out and do the most. But on the same note, you got to be safe and you got to be taking certain precautions to make sure that you're, like, taking care of everybody that's around you. And a lot of people, they still chose, even during the pandemic last year, they still chose to just try and travel and go out and do what they wanted to. And it's mostly just ignorance. It's them not wanting to follow the rules and not wanting to wear a mask or anything.
So I know I have a foundation called My Dukes. So one of my Dukes babies was in a wedding like maybe 3-4 weeks ago, and you know, they videotaped on Facebook the wedding parties on a little bus, you know, whatever. No one's got on masks or whatever. 7 days, exactly. 4 days. It tells you, especially with Delta, your symptoms are going to hit about that 4th day when you've been affected. 4 days, she started getting sniffly. She had her 4-month-old grandbaby with her for a day on that 4th day. She took the grandbaby back 7 days when she was tested. She was positive, and that baby was positive. 4 months old, baby was positive. And then there are also other cases like people, we're not paying attention and focused on MISC, which is multi-organ inflammation of the systems. So we had a young girl, a 15-year-old here in Charlotte. They didn't make a big to-do about it, but her mother finally came out like a month later. Her whole family got tested. They were positive. This young lady was asymptomatic as far as the COVID. She kept complaining of a stomach ache and a headache. So her mother took her to the ER. They do what they do, and they let her go home. And she told her, you know what, go upstairs, baby, lay down. You know, I got your 2 little brothers. When I get them off the daycare, I'll take you back to the hospital. She didn't make it to the next morning. She died of MISC. And there's also MISA, which is adults, where it's happening. So you'll notice that I don't have on a mask. I have respiratory issues. I'm fully vaccinated. But if I live in Concord, and our counterparts, he says it's ignorance, I say it's arrogance. They feel like they don't have to wear a mask. They don't have to do what we do. So it's like, I still wear my mask unless it's a really hot day and I really can't breathe in the mask. But then I make sure you stay over there and I'm gonna stay over here, you know, and if you cough or sneeze, I'm going back down the other way on the aisle and walk around. So it's like, I don't even believe that all of it is ignorance, because in this day and time, there is no reason to be ignorant to the science of what's happening, especially in the Concord area. It's arrogance.
Quite a few of my friends have had COVID, And the few that I know off the top of my head that aren't vaccinated, I think it's mostly because, like, I've already had COVID. So if I get it again, it can't be much worse. But they don't realize, like, this is a different strain. It's a different strain. It could affect your body differently. No matter how old you are, if you're not vaccinated, you're unprotected. You're more likely to have more severe symptoms. And I guess they don't realize that, because that's not something they see every day. So I don't think they realize that it can still affect them just as much, if not worse, than the COVID they had a few months ago.
I can actually speak from my personal experience, and I'll give you two different examples. I tested in a back-to-school event. We offered vaccinations and tests in Monroe, North Carolina. For some of you all who don't know, Union County is one of the counties who actually voted that you had an option to either wear masks to school or not wear masks. So therefore, we tested close to maybe 200, maybe to 300 kids. Thank God, when we initially tested, out of the 300, I think we only had maybe 4 positives. Go into school maybe 2 weeks after school starts. Elementary school. We found out last week out of 400 and something tests, close to 200 kids were positive. So Union County in the state of North Carolina is like one of the highest rates of sickness and COVID-19. So with them having that option, you have a lot of parents, a lot of adults that say, you're trying to take away our freedom of speech.
Exactly.
You're trying to take our American way of living, which is totally misled and it's not right, because these kids are getting sick. I think they had to shut down close to 4 classrooms last week at certain schools due to several kids having the Delta variant. And I'm just saying that because a lot of times people say, oh, well, you're trying to take my rights away. It's not the American way of life for you to tell me to walk around with a mask. I saw a video of rapper Busta Rhymes ranting and raving, using profanity. You can't take my right away wearing this mask, but at the same time, are you thinking about people around you? Concord, North Carolina, we also test up there at several churches. And like we always tell people, by all means, I have nothing against your freedom of right or freedom of speech, but we're just trying to keep you safe. You know, at the end of the day, that's my main goal, is to keep you safe, keep you aware of what's out here. So you have people who come into our testing site who honestly think that they don't have to wear a mask. So before you come into this church, if you want us to test you or give you a vaccination,
Exactly.
you have to wear a mask. It's not optional. You know, and like I said, I'm here to help. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm not here to disregard your beliefs. But if you cannot wear a mask just to a testing site, we can't test you. We can't give you a vaccine. So, I mean, it's just, it's real negative because you find a lot of healthcare professionals and medical professionals who we give up our time with our kids, we put ourselves at risk. And for you to disrespect us to that degree, it's just not right. So now you see a lot of nurses, you see a lot of people who test, they resign. You know, and if you guys watch the news, the population in the ICU department is super high.
Exactly.
Because, you know, you just have people that just feel like you're trying to take my rights away. And I just don't agree with that.
I want to know any last words, any words of wisdom, anything that you guys want to share for our community.
I'd say lead by example. One of the biggest things you can do is show people that you are taking a stand and you want them to gain that understanding that at the end of the day, we are the future, and what you do is going to affect the community around you and how other people see how you carry on your life. So being able to go out and take the vaccine and then show people, okay, I'm fine, I'm still doing everything I want to do, and I'm still being safe and wearing a mask, it shows that I care about not just myself but the people around me, and I want everybody else to be in that same healthy mindset. So leading by example is one of the best things you can do.
for me, it would be, first of all, think about the quality of life and think like they said, think about the future. Um, Masking up, quarantining, it's not fun, and it has a lot of different, negative effects. He was talking about earlier. I personally have struggled with depression, and the COVID hasn't helped at all. Being away from your friends and stuff, and socially, it's hurt a lot. So think about this. Is this something that you want to deal with long term? Because it's not going anywhere. It's not. So you want to think about that and your future. And also for me, as an African American, one of the reasons that I really wanted to get the vaccine because I saw it was affecting us the worst. We have the most pre-existing health conditions, and so it's like a double-edged sword. We're the ones that don't trust, yet it hurts us the most. So yeah, think about yourself, your family, where you want to be in the next few years. Do you still want to be quarantining, masking up, doing Zoom? Because not having that interpersonal connection, really affects a lot of people in different ways. Mentally, socially. You got to think about, a lot of the kids. It's a lot of quarantine babies who haven't seen other kids, and how that's gonna affect, them. I've been watching a lot of, videos and TikToks about, kids struggling to, transition into school and how it affects them socially, and also, education. It's a lot of kids, especially kids in our community, getting left behind because they don't have, their school doesn't have the technology to, hey, every kid gets an iPad or every kid, gets that. It's a lot of kids. I didn't see, my little brother is one of those people who learns, in person the best. And so, the pandemic, has really, hurt him in terms of, his grade wise, because he has trouble focusing and doing some of the stuff, on his own. So it's a lot of people, you're going to see a lot of kids who are getting left behind and won't have some of the basic, education stuff. So you got to think about all those different types of things, not necessarily, of course, for yourself, how you want to live, where you want to go to, you want to travel, you want to do all of this stuff, you want to be able to do all those things in the future, but also how it's going to affect you and, your community, in the long run, now and in the long run. So, what will those little things look like? Because people, overlook a lot of those things because it's not them that's going to have to deal with them. So, yeah.